Hello, good afternoon. So happy here to talk about Bitcoin and its role potentially as a reserve currency going forward. So who's ever thought of that, Bitcoin as a reserve currency? Wow. Do you all work for the Fed or something? Or okay, well anyways, so maybe the IMF, we'll see. So first of all, here's the agenda. Briefly talk about a few things. I want to tell a short story about a brick house analogy about Bitcoin. Talk about what is money and currency. This is the fundamental to understand what reserve currencies are. Then talk about Bitcoin as a suitable role for reserve currency, why reserve currency is needed. So the American dream, this is a short story, American dream about building a brick house, right? So essentially, home ownership is part of the American dream. What if everyone were to use bricks to build a house, and each house were to only require, let's say, 100,000 bricks? So you work hard every year, your job earns you, let's say, 50,000 bricks a year, and then you collect enough bricks, you save enough, and you eventually build your own house. Now, you live modestly, you might save 10,000 bricks a year, and then in 10 years, with 100,000 bricks, you would be able to build your own house. Is that right? Pretty simple math and some labor, and then you essentially live the American dream and own a home. Now, in the world, in the world of brick finance, however, you would store your bricks with a bricksmith to give you brick certificates for redemption, and then governments would eventually regulate these bricksmiths as brick banks, and then now they give you even give you interest in brick certificates every year. So it sounds like a good deal. But what they don't tell you is that houses eventually cost more and more bricks, and some cost even $1 million or 10 million, and this is the new normal. So now brick banks and central brick banks, under this new model, brick shrinkage is now the new normal. Basically requires you to have more and more bricks to use every year to build a house. They also give it a nice opposite sounding name for this shrinkage. They call it inflation. Annual brick inflation, the numbers are purposely underreported to make it feel like you still have as many bricks and they're still as useful. But the purpose is to hide the actual shrinkage. So as you can see in that small photo, the bricks are getting smaller and smaller. And then the interest they give you purportedly don't actually cover the amount of shrinkage you own for the bricks you own. And then, of course, the central banks control the supply of these brick certificates. So essentially, people have no choice. They're discouraged from actually owning physical bricks now. All you do is own brick certificates. And actual physical bricks are now relegated to collectors. And the government's forced people to use the paper bricks, and the paper brick printers get richer and richer, and the poor are barely getting by, and no one owns any homes anymore. Many are homeless. Does that sound familiar? So what is money and currency? So that was just an analogy about the current world in terms of paper money and fiat, as you can tell. Now, to really understand reserve currencies, why we need global reserve currencies, I want to talk about the fundamentals of money and currency. What is money? Do you guys have money? Who has money? Wallets? Any of you have digital money? A lot of you. That's great. So to me, it's two things. So as you know, I don't have an economics background, so I'm giving this talk more from just as a guy, as a Joe Schmo, who came from China. So it's two things. One is store of value. So for me, money is important because it holds its value and it will not degrade. The form will not degrade. You can transport it over distance, right? That's moving physically, and also transporting it over time. What that means is holding the purchasing power for the future, sending money to the future. Kids and grandkids or retirement, stuff like that. The other thing is transfer and payments. It allows you to make transfers easily between people, make payments. Widely accepted, easy to give each other, recognizable, hard to counterfeit, malleable, smaller pieces and stuff like that. So it's essentially two things. It's the store value and then the transfer and payments aspect. What makes money special? What makes money money? What's required? It's about 8 things, okay? Stable, as in physical stable, it has to stay in its form. Portable, you can move it around, give it to people. Recognizable, so the receiver knows it's the money that you had. It has to be rare, the supply has to be limited. It has to be hard to counterfeit, so you can't just create it out of thin air. It has to be malleable, to be small pieces, so you could give small pieces and large pieces depending on how much you want to trade and purchase. It has to be hard to obtain, so you can't just create it for free, so to speak. And then there has to be stable supply, so people know that this is not something that's crazy popular, crazy supply. Then what is currency? So a lot of people outside of our industry, they get confused about money and currency. They think it's the same thing. To me, it's different. Currency is actually a legal definition, right? So governments create laws. We live in a country of government, and the laws define what is and is not a currency. This is especially true in non-democratic countries like China and so on. So only some forms of money are currency. Gold is money, but it's hardly relegated as a currency in most countries. So the hierarchy is we have assets, which is the largest class. Everything is an asset, and of that, subset of it is money, and only certain types of money are currencies. Okay, so that's a hierarchy. Now, why do we need a reserve currency? So I don't want to give you the so-called dictionary definition of reserve currency, but I'll explain to you why we need it from a sort of a human analysis. I know there are economics, there's definitions, in the economics textbooks and so on, but let's not go there. So think about this. In the old world, back in the old days, gold was money. Right? Some of you were born before 1971 when we were still on the gold standard. Gold was money. And even before 1932, gold was tied to the 20 or 35 US dollars, right? So gold was the first form of money. Back then, there was no reserve currency needed. Why is that? Gold wasn't backed by anything because it was it. Gold itself represented real money. There was no need for gold to be exchangeable for something else. Right? Gold had all the features of money. Everything I said earlier. Stable, portable, recognizable, hard, rare, hard to counterfeit, malleable, expensive to create, stable supply. So gold was valuable in its own right, in its own inherent features and properties. So people ask me, why is gold valuable? Yeah, sure, the color, the physical properties, the fact that it doesn't melt, it doesn't rust, corrode, the fact that it holds its form stable, the fact that it cut into smaller pieces and reconstitute into a larger piece of gold. These physical features and aspects, the chemical properties of gold, made it valuable. And it is the physical features and chemical properties of gold that gives it all the features of money that I mentioned up there. So gold, in a sense, is the most classic form of money. It had all these aspects, okay? Stable, portable. So stable, I mean physical form, okay? Physical nature, stable against the elements. It won't ruin the elements. Portable, recognizable. Portable because very dense. Recognizable because of the shiny gold luster color. Rare, supply is limited. Gold is hard to find, right, naturally. It's hard to counterfeit. It's one of the densest metals. So you can't just, color coat, aluminum or copper and stuff like that. It's hard to counterfeit. We talked about it's malleable. You could make it smaller pieces. You can have very fine gold stuff and reconstitute it into larger pieces. Hard to obtain and stable supply, right? So in the new world, today we live in the new world, which is fiat currencies, and it is essentially invented and created by governments. It actually lacks many of the features of real money. It's forced into use by government, and then essentially they create and expand as much as they want. So how do you counterbalance the natural inadequacies of fiat currency? And the reason is, this is the reason why reserve currencies are needed. So in my mind, we need reserve currencies for fiat because fiat itself doesn't have all the aspects of good money, right? Is it stable? Well, paper, metals, it's not as stable. We have, I didn't show, but there are images of, money rotting away and stuff like that, paper bills rotting away. Portable, yes. Recognizable, yes. The supply is certainly not limited. They keep making more of it. It's hard to counterfeit. Yeah, maybe it's hard to counterfeit. Malleable, yes, in the sense that they have smaller denominations. Is it hard to obtain? Well, they can create more of it. Just a printing press, right? There are companies that are profitable in printing money. And is there a stable supply? There isn't, because again, the Fed, all these different central banks, they print as much as they want. So why is the reserve currency needed? It's to serve as the anchor to unlimited fiat currency. It's kind of like the anchor for a boat that is floating in the ocean. If a boat were resting on solid ground, it wouldn't need an anchor. Right? When the ocean is rough, when it goes up and down, the waves and all that, you need the anchor. So to me, it's to balance the supply of the fiat, the fact that supplies keep increasing and so on. They need the reserve currency to give people confidence. It's to establish trust, to give the people the trust of the fiat currency, to bring confidence to something that is not natural money. Okay? So you won't read this in an economics textbook. So gold as a reserve currency. So what happened with fiat currency is, since the invention of paper money, gold became the reserve currency for the fiat money. It's a trickery, right? It's kind of like those BRICS certificates, right? So the US dollar was pegged to gold. It was a hard peg. Back, before 1900, it was $20 for 1 ounce of gold. If you know, just a quick story, if you wonder why the US dollar bills are denominated in $20, $10, $5, $2, $1, it's the same ratio as how traditional gold coins were. 1 ounce, half an ounce, quarter ounce, 1/10 of an ounce, and 1/20 of an ounce. You map it exactly to the US dollar, $20, 20, 10, 5, 2, 1. And then you have the 5 ounce gold coin, which is 100 US dollar. And the same with the silver dollar, which is $1, again, half dollar, quarter dollar, dime and a nickel. And the penny was 1 copper piece. But anyways, so gold, the US dollar was pegged to gold, a hard peg. And today, I actually argue gold is still a reserve currency, but central banks won't openly admit that. Okay, that's why they have it on the balance sheet. China's been buying up a lot of gold and so on. In fact, I would even say that the US dollar today is still pegged to gold. It's just that people don't realize it. It's a soft peg. Gold's been trading at $1,100, $1,200 for the last few years. It's a soft peg. Every so often, they change it. They let it expand a little bit. So central banks today maintain a trading window of gold via open market trading of gold and gold futures. Okay, so Bitcoin and digital reserve currencies. So now that you have a better understanding of what I think of reserve currencies, this is what I think about Bitcoin. So we know this slide I probably don't need to go over, but the first successful digital currency, digital asset, 21 million, the symbol, the price is $400 some today. Bitcoin is real money. Because for the first time in humanity, we have now invented something digital that satisfies all these criteria of money, right? It's stable. It doesn't degrade, right? Bitcoin, by definition. It's portable, electronic, digital, so you can bring it anywhere, everywhere, across borders and so on. It's recognizable easily. You can instantly verify that the Bitcoin were in the address are there on the blockchain publicly. It's rare and limited. We control it by specifying at most 21 million. It's hard to counterfeit, right? Double spending and all that, very hard to counterfeit through strong cryptography. It's malleable. It goes down all the way down to 8 decimal places, 1 Satoshi unit. It's hard to obtain because of the mining difficulty, right? Hard to obtain. And stable supply because we know it has a known inflation rate. So very stable supply in that sense. Okay? So for the first time, this is no small achievement. We have now, humanity, thanks to Satoshi Nakamoto, we have now invented a digital form of the perfect money. And because of that, it's suitable as a global reserve currency for digital currencies. So in the future world of digital fiat, I argue we still need a digital reserve currency, a reserve currency. Bitcoin has all the perfect features of money, right? It could serve as that role, okay? So Bitcoin's blockchain can also be the global anchor, the proof of work chain and all that, for nationally created digital currencies. So down the road, I fully expect countries to create their own version of the national currencies, only onto some sort of digital blockchain. Okay, in fact, China just announced it, as I flew out here yesterday. So the People's Bank of China just announced their intention to explore and create digital currencies. They've been researching this for the last 2 years. So they made the announcement yesterday. I think that's why prices went up by, 5, 10, 20%. They're talking about, again, they haven't done it yet, but they're speculating, talking about it. Maybe creating a digital version of the renminbi, for example. The details still forthcoming. I'm very excited about it. Now, the question is, will that Chinese digital currency, will that be the global reserve? Or rather, what I think is, will there be a need for a digital reserve currency to back these digital national currencies? Because again, it's like that ship that's bobbing up and down on the ocean without the anchor, right? So in summary, we talked about assets, money, and currencies in that order. Certain features make for real money. Gold has it. Bitcoin has it. So in this world, gold is the only physical thing that has these 8 features, and Bitcoin is the only digital thing that has these 8 features. Fiat currencies do not have it. Okay, so that's probably no surprise to this audience, but most people in the world don't understand that. And because fiat currency don't have it, I argue that's why in the current banking system we have the notion of the so-called reserve currency. It's to give the anchor for the fiat. Okay, so think of the anchor. And then if fiat ever goes digital, we will still need that digital anchor. Okay, so that's why I think Bitcoin can be a great and suitable digital reserve currency. All right, welcome to the era of Bitcoin. Thank you very much. My name is Bobby Lee, CEO of BTCC. Thank you.